to July 10th meeting of the work session of the Eugene City Council. First thing we're going to do is to go into executive session. City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 1966
192.
02A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, or state staff member. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the public audience are asked to leave the room, all of you. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we may return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. And now we're in executive session.
As soon as he knocks.
Yeah, this is
And
When I knock, let us know. we are.
Gavel is gavel.
You're on the air right now.
Gavel fetish.
Okay, we're now in open session. And anyone want to speak?
I'll speak.
Emily?
I'm really excited about the chance to hire Judge Gill as our presiding judge. He's got 20 years of experience here and a lot of dedication to our court system. He's very enthusiastic, and I would like to make him an employee of the city. I think it would be fairer for him to have something he can count on, since he's got a really big job now. So I'm in favor of offering him the city employee job, and I would like to see us choose at the top or near the top of compensation. He'll be working full-time instead of part-time and giving up his private practice. So he'll be putting more hours in, and Judge Allen was making more than our top offer for working part-time. I think we need to reward all that experience, and so I want to go to the top of the range.
And so maybe we should talk a little bit about what that range,
That options are.
Oh,
What
the
the-
range
yeah.
is 109,366 to 141,044. Those are thousands.
That's right.
I can speak to that a little bit more. Your direction related to assigning the salary range to this position in your work session in April was to align with the division manager 2 salary range, which is the 109,366 to 141,044. And then again, as Catherine mentioned, contract provisions would be in alignment and negotiated in alignment with the types of terms that would be in the police auditor contract.
Well, I feel that although he would be a new city hire, the 20 years should really count as if he had been a hire the whole time.
Mike?
Thank you, Betty. In the book, The Eugene's First Century by the 3 McCornack sisters, one of the things they talk about is how the very first county commission meeting was held out there on the corner of 8th and Oak, underneath an oak tree. And in the history of things, there's evolution, and we get better and we get smarter and we get better able to serve the public. And I'm looking forward to seeing the municipal judge as a role evolve here and become a city employee rather than a private contractor, and us put a new energy and a new structure in place that emphasizes justice a little bit more in our community. I think it's a good thing that we're hiring him on as a city employee. I look forward to the evolution, not only because of the strong recommendation that Judge Allen gave Judge Gill. I look forward to, because he's individually is a very bright and experienced person, I look forward to see how he influences and evolves the evolution of our municipal court over time. And I feel similarly about the salary range that was just discussed. So I'm happy with the direction we're going here.
Alan?
So I, too, was impressed by Judge Gill, his knowledge, his passion, his energy, and his vision for the court, and Judge Allen's high recommendation, putting him in that interim position weighed heavily in that decision as well. So I'm very much in favor of hiring him as the municipal judge, as a city employee, with a contract similar terms to the police auditor, and also with the same supervision model. So with that, do you have a motion, Emily? Or?
I do have a motion,
We have someone else in the queue.
but we have more things.
So once we get to the compensation part, I think is it going to be a 2-part motion where we hire and then talk about compensation?
This one's written as one.
Oh, so we're doing it as one. So do you have a handout for the compensation that we could see?
Emily and I have it, but
I left it upstairs.
Now I got to get the glasses out.
This is just a general handout that just outlines the types of things that would be in an independent contractor contract versus an employment contract. And so, as you would see, it just includes the compensation range you've decided on for this position, is just, as well as just a high-level summary of the other types of city employee benefits that would be included and the types of terms that could be included in the contract.
So this Division 2 manager range, if we were to do a market adjustment in the future, that would just adjust.
Correct.
Correct. And so if we were to do a, something similar to what the changes you made to the police auditor's contract last year, the presiding judge would receive what is the market adjustment COLA in January, and then you yearly, if you could do a merit increase in percentage, or you could negotiate the contract to have it be that it would be something more similar to the city managers, where it was kind of more of a lockstep. But if we did it similar to the police auditors, it would give the council the flexibility to, in addition to the COLA, give a market increase, or I'm sorry, a merit increase at yearly.
How many steps is in the range?
So there's no more steps, it's just a range.
Okay, so we'd have to figure out where we want to place him. On the range. I'm looking at this as we read.
Can I?
And this is basically the standard compensation package.
Correct. Yes, with a few additions in terms of the types of things that would be in a contract near the bottom specific to the position.
Right, the membership in the bar.
Correct, yeah.
Go ahead.
So, and I think one of the options, if you were to align with previous practices related to this, was you would be giving your council president authorization to go away and negotiate a salary within this range, and as well as other terms and conditions. And then Catherine, as the city attorney, and myself would support that process so that there's an option for negotiation with Judge Gill on it. So you wouldn't have to land on a specific number today.
You just have to say the range.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's making me feel more comfortable. Right. I think that's it, thank you.
Are you through? Chris?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with what you were just saying. I think this is a contract that'll be negotiated, and so I think we can give our interest here. I agree with everything that was said, and I think the motion that Emily has is what we need to read. It has the range in it, which then is subject to the contract negotiation, which would involve you and the council president. I would just say my interest, which is what I've heard from others here, is that we negotiate at a range at the high end of this, or that we negotiate a salary at the high end of this range. I think that's perfectly acceptable and desirable. I don't want to come down to a specific number or hamstring the negotiation process, but I do want to say my interest is that he's worth a higher end of the range, so I think we should work to that end. But you have many other things you can negotiate in the contract in order to make the package attractive to the judge. So I would leave it at that and say the motion that you have should be able to fulfill all of that and come up with a good contract.
Anyone else?
I have a comment.
Emily?
So I guess I'm hearing that you want us to include this total range, because I would like to start the lower end of the range a little higher to push, so that he's going to have to negotiate. So I don't want to say, let's give him the top and that's it, because there's no negotiation. But I don't, 109 is too low for me. So I'm going to put out a range of numbers, and if you want to make motions to change it, you will. I move to hire starting over. I move to hire Greg Gill as a city employee for the municipal court presiding judge position, and authorize the council president to negotiate and execute an employment contract with Judge Gill that includes a salary ranging from $130,000 to $140,000.
Is there a second somewhere?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And Alan?
So the motion doesn't it takes it out of the context of a division manager 2 range.
Right.
Well, so what I.
Just has a number.
Correct. And so it's, having it have to be at 130, I think is okay, because that's still within the range. I would ask that the motion be consistent with the 141,044, because then
What you got to do.
the salary lands within what your previous motion was regarding division manager too.
Well, so does 140.
It does, but it stops it.
Okay.
It's,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I just
So you
like
take
the round numbers.
If you take it as a friendly amendment that the range is actually Division 2 manager range, so it locksteps with that as we go forward in time, and that the, between 130 and the top of the range.
I accept that.
Okay.
Greg, you
So
accept?
do I.
Okay. And Mike? Yes, I have.
So the range is designed to last a particular length of time, assuming a COLA and a step and whatnot. So my question is, have you done the calculation to find out, to know, is he going to top out in that range very quickly? At which point he's in that same place for multiple years before the range is adjusted? Anybody?
You want me to
HR?
go? I can, it's not, it's actually a system that's not a topping out system. It will, the entire range moves. So, for example, with the market adjustment in January of 2.2%, the entire range moved 2.2%.
COLA alters the range.
COLA alters the range.
Got it.
And unlike the previous, like, 5, 6 step system, sorry, and 6, that people lockstep moved and then they stopped.
Step, right.
That's-
This is different
This
than
is
that.
different.
Been working to
All
fix
right.
it.
That we,
In that case, I will support the motion with the amendment.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we will
You can have that back.
go into executive session again, and I'll read the script again. Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.660, have 2-1, to review and evaluate the job performance of a chief executive officer, other officers, employees, and staff. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we may return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. There, executive session. Allen.
Good, Mark. Yet again, another year of excellent work, and I think you've assembled an excellent team that does excellent work in the community, especially your work with EPD and transitioning a new police chief, and also the work and outreach to the communities of color and other minority communities has been just spectacular. Exactly what we wanted to see happen. So I think you're probably the premier police auditor in the country, and people come here to learn what you do because of the work that you do. So please keep up the good work. And I thought you had a lifetime contract, like kind of Supreme Court thing, but apparently not. Please pass on the compliments to your crew that they're doing an excellent job. So I put you down as excellent in your review, and I hope you stick around for a long time.
Jennifer.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks again, Mark. I think obviously your team is doing an excellent job. I'm always impressed that it really feels like you push yourselves on your own and do a good job of evaluating what you've done and looking for those ways to improve it going forward, and always looking for those new opportunities for outreach. And I've always been impressed. I like the way when you're talking about correcting behavior, it seems like you focus so much on education and not punishment. Like you really want our police officers to get better. And I always feel this sense like that they can always do better, and they just need the right tools and the right education. And I'm always impressed with that positive attitude that you approach things with. So thank you so much.
Chris.
Thank you. Yes, I think you have been doing an outstanding job. I think as an auditor, you have been performing all the tasks and shaping the department and its relationship with the police department in every way I could have hoped would have happened, and I think that's really great. I think an increase in internally generated submissions to the auditor's office is a real testament to the culture change that's been going on with your support. And so I think it's not necessarily the number of complaints, but the kind of complaints and where they come from and how they're adjudicated that really marks the success of the auditor's office. And in that respect, you've done an unbelievable job. I know you've now been with us for 10 years, and I think in that amount of time, you have completely transformed the audit function and have really helped to transform the culture of the police department in extremely positive ways. And I feel good about that. And when I look at the overall recommendations for improvements, the area where you would probably seek criticism, the most I see here is to continue, to keep doing the things that you're already doing and that you're working to try to improve. And I think that's a real mark of somebody who can still do things to improve, to continue to do things, but there's nothing glaring. You're doing a great job, and so I rate you as excellent, and I think you are a credit to the city and to the people of Eugene.
Mike.
Thank you. There was a time in the history of our community not so long ago when the relationship between many parts of the general public and the police department was pretty bad. There were some things that took place that many people in our community were pretty unhappy about. And the creation of the Office of Police Auditor, the creation of the Citizens Review Board, the creation of the Police Commission were all responses to try to do one thing better. And that was to create a relationship between the police department and the community where the structure pushed everybody towards cooperation, pushed everybody towards a positive outcome. And I rate you as the highest excellent mark in the job that you do because you've accomplished that end in spades. You've accomplished it in, to an extent that I didn't know was possible at the time. And it's not just the way I feel about that is the case. I think it's easily seen in that we had some high-profile incidents years ago that created community tension, but we've had some pretty high-profile situations in the last few years that have taken place too, with shootings and other things. And I think the mark of your success is that it has been a calm, understood process within members of the community and the police department that, they have a high degree of faith and assuredness that All those investigations are watched carefully for the public's benefit and taken care of and done well. And I think your work adds to the community, and you do it very, very well. So good work. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I will. I would like to point out that this position came into being because of a citizen initiative, which council did not try to stop at the time. And
As a response to what I'm saying, but yeah.
no, I just want to point that out. Also, the first auditor, I made a good start, I think, on having the position accepted. It was very difficult at first, and it was very exceptionally difficult because the first auditor was female. And anyone knows that it is still, especially in a position such as this, it's more difficult for a woman than for a man because of the culture. It has changed in the last 22 years, and it's changed a great deal. And I just wanted to point out that it isn't just what Mark has done, someone else started it. And I think it's really important to remember that citizens started the whole thing. I think it's a good thing that they did, but they had to do this they had to have the vote 2 times, I remember, before it happened. And I think that most people are glad that it did happen. Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say, Betty, I respect your opinion. I absolutely disagree.
Stop there.
No, I'm not going to, because I think it's insulting to our auditor a little bit, and so I want to say this out loud, that I don't believe it had to do with gender. I think he's better at the work. And I don't want it diminished. I don't want what I said before diminished by the fact that it has anything to do with gender at all, because I don't agree. So, thank you.
Okay, okay. Anyone else want to have a last word? Emily, do you have a motion?
So,
But we haven't talked about how
Right.
much.
and
No, I thought that would,
Carrie, I think, has some information that she,
Yeah, do you want me to, I was going to review again just compensation, because I know that's been a question that has come up, and just want to make sure everybody's clear on how Auditor Gissner's contract reads now. So every year in January, Auditor Gissner will be eligible for the market adjustment pay, which means that is something that is given to other non-represented employees. And so past January, that market adjustment pay was 2.2%. And so that is an automatic process that will continue each year. That percentage amount will differ each year because it will be based on market. So again, last year was 2.2%. The competency adjustment pay that is given to other non-represented employees, that happens in January. For Auditor Gissner, he is eligible for a merit in place of the competency adjustment pay. So that's what you're deciding on today. And based on the contract, you can decide a rate anywhere between 1% and 5%.
and just so I don't, so there's not any confusion based on the question that I answered in the last work session that we had. One of the problems that was had was that it was capped. The prior contract of Auditor Gissner had a range, and that range wasn't moving. What you did last year was you pulled the cap. You set his salary and then gave yourself the flexibility within that contract to award a merit increase from 1% to 5%. So there is no more range in that contract. It's just a number. He gets the MAP, what is actually a COLA in January, and then he's eligible for the merit. And so I want to make sure I clarify a question that you had asked in the last work session. Similarly, if the contract is to be the same for Judge Gill, there's no cap, there's no range. It would be the initial salaries negotiated within that range, but to have a similar process and to avoid the prior problem.
Mike?
And do I recall correctly that any merit, as you mentioned, is tied to our score as the city managers? Because my understanding is that we did that some time ago, as we do for the city manager.
No, it is not. We do not have that as part of the contract. It's just the city manager. It's your discretion.
city manager,
No, I'm hearing you, but I don't agree. I'm saying, I recall us making a motion to match that. So, all right. I think we should, for what it's worth. I think that the merit pay should match the ratings that we're giving as we have to the manager.
If you wanted to do that, that would be a different set of contract amendments that you could give direction to the council president to do. But that was, the contract amendment that you made last year was not that. It was just to lift the range and give yourselves.
I think we should treat both the manager, the manager, the auditor, and the judge in a similar structural style, in that if we're going to score their work and score our rating that we give them, I would hope that their merit and the dollar amounts we're willing to put behind that match up to that scoring system, as we've done with the manager for all three. So,
Alan?
I agree with that. The reason we did that for the city manager was to take it out of basically the politics of it, and make it based on our scores associated with that. And it also takes us, the council, out of the awkward position of having to scramble at the last minute to figure out what the merit should be. If we did it by a scoring rating, which is what we do with the city manager, then it's just, then what you score has an impact. It's not just a score. It has an impact on the merit. And I would like to see us actually amend our contract to have all three of our employees treated the same way.
So moved.
That makes me more comfortable in doing it that way. Also makes more sense. I mean, we did it for the city manager for the reason that I just mentioned, but it also makes a lot of sense.
Motion.
So,
Make the motion.
This is for now?
so what would be the appropriate way to do that?
We haven't.
The top of your head.
I think Emily has a motion ready.
Yeah. But
Well, but the motion is not
is separate.
reflective.
Yeah.
motion isn't reflective of this.
We haven't made any scores.
Well,
we
there
did.
there is
Yeah, we do.
scores. I mean, you could move to move to authorize the council president to amend the contract consistent with the city manager's mechanism
For
pay increases.
merit.
Now,
Right,
for now.
Yes.
It should have for this review.
It would be for this review, and if it's the contract amendment, for every review moving forward.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be for
And
moving
then-
forward on all the contracts. And off the top of your head, do you remember how that system worked?
Yeah.
You have that?
Yes, it's,
Good, fair, medium, excellent.
Yeah, it's still the same ratings that you all
Points.
use. It's points given for certain points for excellent, good, successful, unsuccessful. I believe it's 3 points for excellent, 2 points for good, 1 point for successful.
but do you remember the
And then
percentages?
how do you relate that to the percentages?
And then, let's see, and then it's, the percent increase would be 0% increase if the total was between 1 and 1.5, there'd be a 0% increase. If the score is between 1.6 and 2.5, it's a 3.5% increase. And then a score of 2.6 up to 3 is a 5% increase. So it's 3 set increments,
In this case, he would get
a 5, based on the ratings.
5% because it would be more than 2.6%.
Correct.
Yeah.
You get 6 excellence and 2. Does the mayor's count in that?
Yeah, typically we
No.
did.
Shouldn't.
So that's a separate, and so that is actually a discussion that is worth having. It was, if
the
you.
scoring.
Historically, the mayor's score has been calculated in as part of the average. If in fact you do not want the mayor's score to be included, now, this would be absolutely the moment to make that specific in any new contracts going forward, and it also could then be discussed as part of when the city manager's contract comes up.
Yeah, I didn't think that the mayor's score was actually included in the scoring. I like the fact that the mayor does the evaluation, because that's an important part of it, but I don't think that the mayor's score should actually be incorporated, because the council employee, not a mayoral employee. And so with that clarification, when it comes around, I'll make the amendment. You can think about how to say that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mike?
I don't know why we didn't just make that motion, but I am in complete agreement. The mayor should not be part of that. It's not the way the city charter reads, and I don't know that historically, the mayor began at a certain point to just fill them out, much like at a certain point, the mayor just sort of started attending budget committee meetings, which has never been the case historically. But I don't think that we should structurally keep supporting something that's not backed up by the way the charter's written.
Emily?
This was a big concern of mine since I've been on council, and I've brought it up to both the mayor and the attorney and been pretty much brushed off. It's not in the charter, but it's the way it's been done. And last year, the mayor's vote changed the outcome. And I don't think that that's right, and I don't want to see it happen again. As far as adding this scoring system today, I am against it. We didn't know beforehand. We didn't, our scores were just sort of general. They weren't going to be points. And if it's going to go from a range from 1% to 5%, and that's what we're going to decide, the auditor asked, I believe, for 3%, and I would like to honor that. And I'm willing to honor that today. But I'm not happy about a change that we're just going to do right now with votes we already made.
Would you change your vote?
You can alter your vote.
So there's a couple options available. You could vote on a merit increase for this year and then authorize a contract amendment for the future years. And so then, as the scorings are being assessed, you know that it's tied to a compensation range. That's an
I would be
option.
fine with that.
Okay.
That's fair.
And then also, it sounds like you can clarify in the contract itself that the numbers that get included in the total, it does not include the mayor. And you can make that 100% clear within the contract. And, yeah.
Chris? Or were you through, Emily?
I think so.
Okay, Chris?
I'm absolutely in favor of creating a structure. I think that for consistency and to make it a much more, I don't want to use the word mechanical, but to make it a much more reliable system, I think is a good thing. To go back to the notion of no surprises, though, I'm sensitive to the fact that we suddenly come up with this in the middle of the meeting today could be counted as a surprise. So I'm comfortable with going ahead with what we had already kind of worked out, but I absolutely want to implement this for the next evaluation. I think that would be critically important for me.
Mike, did you have your hand up? Or?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know what the motion will be, but I will have an amendment to make his merit pay match the rating that all of us gave him, much like it would if the system were in place today. I think he's earned it. So, I mean, I heard what you said with 3, but I will amend, or at least move to amend to 5. So
You'll get your
either way,
chance.
I think we're going to end up there. So
We have a prediction. Anyone else have something? Emily, motion?
I move that council award the police auditor a 3% merit salary increase effective 7/7/2019 and authorize the council president to execute a contract consistent with this motion.
Second?
All in favor?
whoa.
Which one of you was first?
He was.
Alan.
Do you have some language to amend so that it's, that we ask the negotiation contract amendment that this applies forward and that the mayor's score not be included?
Yes, and so you can either add it on to this one or
Yes.
make a separate
Yes.
motion.
Add it on. Please ask.
Okay. And so you could say at the end of motion, and that amends the contract to establish a salary increase structure identical to the city managers and that explicitly excludes the mayor's ranking in the average score.
Second.
She could accept it as a friend.
I accept it.
Accept it?
Who's the second?
And just as a caveat, so that then becomes, since we're taking the city presiding municipal judge, that model is incorporated
We
into
will
the
wrap that
judges.
in,
Does
yes.
that read for the future or today?
Okay,
It would be, and if it's not clear, that would be, the contract amendment would be for moving forward, that
Yeah,
new
well, what-
So
structure.
next year.
Yes.
With the judge, I mean, we're negotiating salary
Right,
today,
absolutely,
And then
yes.
the next time there's a merit, it would occur.
Right.
A separate motion for this.
so Emily has accepted it as a friendly, right?
Yep,
And the second
that was me.
was you did
I
too.
think I'll accept it.
You think you will, huh? Okay, Mike?
Move to amend the 3 to 5.
Second.
Did someone second that?
She did.
Jennifer.
Okay,
And I'll speak to that if, well, I got a second.
And then I-
It's been said at this table that this gentleman does his job better than anybody in a similar role in the country. That's a pretty strong statement. I agree with it. Right? If merit pay means anything at all, I think the man should be rewarded for having created and done the work commensurate with excellence. So I don't have a problem with that in the world. I think that's exactly what should be, and I meant that. As I stated at the beginning, I thought that metric was already in place already, which is why I said excellent out loud so clearly, because I wanted it to be 5% initially and knew that from the beginning. So I hope that you will vote in favor of considering that.
Alan, you're.
Yeah, I question, so this gets discussed with council officers and the auditor beforehand did you have that conversation?
No.
About I thought you said that he.
Well, we
for
got it in
3%.
writing, his self-evaluation.
If I may clarify, when we talked about it, and I gave you in my evaluation, and I put the ask in there, and I put the ask at 3% plus 5 vacation days because of
Chill with
travel.
that. If I need to amend it.
And I know I wrote it down there, because of the travel that I have to
unfortunately
do
left it
for my mother on the other side of the country, and so that was, the original ask was 3% and the 5 vacation days.
I would accept that, but I'm not accepting the 5%, so I don't know which time we do which.
So you'd want to just,
My motion is to change the 3 to 5.
yeah, let's address the
and come back and
amendment
do a
first
friendly
from 3 to
amendment to that.
5, and then let's separately talk about, because you can't accept his motion out of.
No, but I
It was
would
on motion.
No, I understand.
It was a clarification.
May I clarify my amendment?
Yes, you may clarify.
My amendment should have said,
Got demoted.
change to 3 to 5 plus 5 days. That was my amendment.
And who seconded it?
That's fine, yeah.
Jennifer.
For sec.
Then we should vote on the amendment. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Oh, did you want to talk first, Greg?
No, that's okay. I'm ready to vote on the amendment.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Opposed? The amendment passes.
I'm just going to seek clarity real quick, since the 5 days, is that a one-time 5 days for this year? 5% this year plus 5 days, extra 5 days this year?
Because
Okay.
next year we have a new system.
Yeah, we have a new system next year. I just want to make sure that's clear. Everybody's on the same page.
Okay. Any more discussion before we vote on the amended motion? Okay, all in favor of the amended motion?
Which is 5% plus 5 days.
Yeah.
Plus
changes in structure
contract
for next year.
amendments and
Plus
not
the
including
changes
mayor's
in
score.
instruction, right, that's correct. So
All of it.
it's, what you're voting on now is 5% merit increase plus 5 additional vacation days
This year.
for this year, and then amending the contract moving forward to be consistent with the city manager structure and clarifying that the mayor's vote does not, or mayor's number doesn't count in the average.
It's a lot of putting together of different things.
You are welcome to move to divide, if you want to break those off.
I move to divide.
You'd want to break off the 5% 5 days
I
with,
want to break it all up. I want to vote on 5 or 3%. I want to vote on whether or not you get the 5 days, and I want to vote on What was the last thing? My brain-
The moving forward,
Contract amendment.
changing the contract.
I want to vote on that because I want
I agree
it.
with,
I don't, I want two of the parts, but not one.
Okay,
Which part don't you want?
5.
okay. So if you want to make a motion to divide it into 3 parts, those 3 parts, you need a second. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So now what you have is 3 motions.
We have a motion to,
don't you
no,
have to
we don't.
You have a motion to.
Shall we divide
No,
it is the question.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. You don't have 3 motions. But
First
what
vote is,
you're-
shall we divide it?
What you're voting on is the 3 motions being
Separate it.
Separately.
5%, 5 days, and I understand, Mike, what you're saying. I'm explaining what the 3 motions are, and you're being asked, do you want to do that? That's what you're voting on.
And before we vote,
5 days and the amendment to the contract.
Right, you're not voting on the substance of, you're voting on whether you want to divide them up.
whether we're going to divide it, and I want to say that I think we always should do things one at a time, instead of forcing people who are against part of something to vote for the whole thing, against the whole thing. So I will vote for this motion to divide. Mike?
I believe that there's consensus at the table with the pieces as we put them together, which is why I will, and enough discussion about the pieces, which is why I'll vote against dividing it, because to me, it feels like we're going back over the same ground we just discussed.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion to divide? 2. Opposed? Okay, fails. Now we're back to the big motion,
Yeah, correct.
which includes, would you please read the whole thing then?
Yes. I won't be able to read the whole thing because I came off the top of my head for the last part, but what you're voting on is a move that the council award the police auditor a 5% merit increase effective 7/7/2019 plus 5 additional vacation days, and authorize the council president to execute a contract consistent with this motion, and that amends the contract to establish a merit increase like the city managers moving forward, and that excludes the mayor's number in the numerical average. That's what you're voting on. That's the whole motion.
Okay, I disapprove of the changing the contract, tying the increase to the evaluations, as I voted against it when we did it for the manager too, but now I feel that I have to vote against this because I don't like that included. And I think, really, we're doing it, when we add 5 days to 5%, we're doing a huge increase, because 5 days is worth a lot.
That's there's no dollar change.
Yeah, there is.
If you
Sure
take
it is.
You're
What do you?
doing 5 instead of 3 plus 5 vacation days. You have 3%
vacation
plus
days don't
5
increase
days,
this.
or 5% and 5 days.
Vacation days
He
are,
asked for 3 plus 5 days, and we're going to give him 5 plus 5 days. So, what's the money difference between those?
For the
It's a lot of
vacation days, it's 0,
well,
because you either take it as pay or vacation. You don't get
Yeah, anyway.
additional.
We know what the,
Yeah, yes, you do. I mean, I don't understand then.
Well, they would be, if you're awarding vacation days, they would be paid days off. So there would be 5 additional paid days off that he does not have access to right now.
You lose time.
Right,
difference
but
is
he's,
time.
yeah,
That's the only
so, but he would, if he didn't have those, he'd be getting paid, and so his total compensation package doesn't change.
But we lose,
right.
we lose 5 days of work, so it costs us
if
something.
you're in any other
We lose
job,
time, not dollars. The dollars don't change.
Time
but
is money.
we do have a question on the table.
Somebody said
so
that
I-
once.
in any other job you lose, if you take extra vacation days,
Right.
you lose money.
Call the question.
Okay, all in favor?
I want to say one
Oh,
other
Emily?
thing. I think that the changing the contract, although I'm totally in favor of it, is somewhat of a surprise today. And I think that we owe it to constituents to let them have a chance to email us about it. And I want it to happen, but I think today is the wrong time. And I want to give Mark what he asked for, which is the 3% and the 5 days. So I'm going to have to vote against it because of that.
I think if we were going to change the contract, we should have a work session about it, actually, but, okay, all in favor of the big motion? Big emotional motion. Okay, opposed? 2. Motion passes. And I think that concludes our business for the day, so the meeting is adjourned.